And so here we have the split here, and tonight we'll talk about Manasseh. And so first off, Manasseh, his name means forget my toil. And if you remember the story of Joseph at all, that which we've talked about quite extensively, that Joseph was in Egypt, was sent there, sold as a slave, ended up serving there, was in prison for something that he did not do. Uh, Individuals forgot him. He was finally pulled out to interpret the Pharaoh's dreams. And because he was able to interpret those dreams, and Pharaoh saw that he could trust him and that he was a man of great faith of God, that he was placed in a prominent position. He was also given a wife while he was there, and he had children. So there in Genesis 41:50 through 52, it reads, in Joseph, unto Joseph were born two sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. For God, said he, hath made me forget my toil and all my father's house. And so that is what Manasseh's name means. And if you remember, Joseph, for 7 years, preparing for that famine that was coming, he prepared for the plenty. So within that 7 years, he had both of his sons. So that happened before even his brothers came in, and there was that recognition of that as well. As we've seen many times, let's look at we know that the firstborn was supposed to receive the double portion of things. But when Jacob meets both of Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, the second one, Ephraim, is set before Manasseh, the first one. And so we'll quickly read that account in Genesis 48:8 through 20. And if you want to flip to your Bible, you can follow along, or you can just listen and go back and read it later if you need to. And so in Genesis 48, starting in verse 8, and Israel beheld Joseph's sons and said, who are these? And Joseph said unto his father, they are my sons, whom God hath given me in this place, meaning he's in Egypt. And he said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. Now the eyes of Israel, or Jacob, remember he's renamed, were dim for age, so that he could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God hath showed me also thy seed. And so he's rejoicing in this. He never thought that he'd see Joseph again, but now he sees Joseph and his two grandsons. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand, and he laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from the evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hands to remove it from Ephraim's head onto Manasseh's head, because Joseph knows it's the firstborn that's supposed to get that blessing, not Ephraim, the younger. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. but truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, all these shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So the younger before the older. We've seen this quite a few times in scripture and the things that we've been studying, and even things outside of what we've been seeing. And so we saw this with Cain and Abel. Abel was more justified or righteous in God's sight with what he offered versus Cain. We saw this with Ishmael and Isaac as well. We saw this with Joseph versus Reuben in this, and some of the other brothers, because essentially Reuben gave that firstborn right up because of the sins that he committed. We also see it in some other things. David over all of his older brothers as well. We see it also with Abraham, that he is actually listed genealogically before his older brother Haran. We see it with Solomon, that he was chosen as David's predecessor, the next king in line there, over some of his older brothers as well there. And so just an interesting pattern there with a lot of that. And when you go back and you read a lot of those accounts of Cain and Abel, Reuben and Joseph, David and his brothers, Abraham and Haran, maybe not so much David and Haran, because we don't know a lot about Haran, but Solomon and some of his brothers, in that Ishmael and Isaac, that it always, most times, is a picture of the firstborn is a picture of the flesh, and the second, the one that is chosen as the to receive the birthright, is the spiritual. And so there's a difference there. So it's the flesh and the spirit, the example of that in all of these with this. And so we may see some of this with Ephraim and Manasseh. And so Manasseh's sons, there are none listed in Genesis, because all of that listing in Genesis is as Jacob and all of his sons, with the exception of Joseph, are coming into the land of Egypt. Joseph was already there, and so his sons weren't listed. But they're in Numbers, and then in Chronicles, you get Machir, who begot Gilead, and then the sons of Gilead, Hezer, Helek, Asriel, Shechem, Shemitah, Heifer, and Zelophehad. Now, Zelophehad is a son of Heifer, and he didn't have any sons. He only had daughters. And that's going to come into play as we continue our study here. And so moving on here, if we remember from our study in Joseph last week, the ensign or the symbol, the sign for the tribe of Joseph was the wheat, because of what was very prominent in Joseph's history, as far as that he prepared for that famine with collecting of the wheat and then sowing that with that. So that sign is for the tribe of Joseph, but it potentially could also be the sign, the symbol for the tribe of Manasseh, because they come off of. When we look at this just gives us the 12, and so we get the one symbol for the full tribe of Joseph, to include Ephraim and Manasseh, the wheat there at the 10 o'clock position. But when we look at Ephraim next week, there is an emblem, and you'll see that because they were encamped on the west side when we're out in the wilderness with the tabernacle. The camp of Ephraim, their symbol was the ox. And so Ephraim takes on that symbol for the ox, not just for that camp, but for their tribe as well. And then, so it could be suggested, again, none of these are solid in scripture. We've talked about this quite a bit, as far as that this is Jewish tradition, matches up with the Gospels, matches up with the face of the cherubim. And so Manasseh would have his own symbol, as every other tribe did, and then the head of the camp, that tribe is then the ensign for the camp as a whole. And so Ephraim ends up being the head of the camp that Manasseh is in. And so we've got the wheat and then the ox for the two. So there's potential that Manasseh took on the symbol of the wheat in place of Joseph, as kind of the breakout, the subcategory of that tribe. They were third in marching rank, so the camp of Ephraim led out the third camp to come out, of course, after the priest with the ark, Judah, and then we had Levites again, and then the camp of Reuben, Levites again, and then the camp of Ephraim, and then the camp of Dan. This was as they marched in or moved in the wilderness, and then as they went to war as well in battles. So their census at the beginning of Numbers compared to the end of Numbers, pretty significant difference. This tribe alone, Manasseh alone, grew over 20,000 people. And if we remember, there were many that died in the wilderness because of their unbelief, that an entire generation that had passed away in that and didn't see the promised land, didn't go into it. And so that's a huge number in 40 years to have increased. And they are the largest tribe as they're going into the promised land in this, based on those numbers with that increase there. The head of the tribe in the wilderness is listed there in Numbers, and they offered on the 8th day when the tabernacle was being dedicated. Manasseh was the tribe to bring the offerings on that 8th day. Their land allotted, if we remember, as we studied Reuben and Gad many weeks ago, that Manasseh was one of the tribes that chose to stay on the eastern side of the Jordan. And so we'll bring up the map here. And so you can see here on the map on the right-hand side, this shows a little bit of a smaller land for them, and that kind of a teal green area on the right side of the Jordan River. But then they also inherited land that was in the or territory in the promised land as well. In the map in the middle, you can see Manasseh, their territory on the eastern side of the Jordan is much larger than what the first map shows, but then it also has in the same coloring there, just above Ephraim and below Asher and Issachar, their land. And then on the map on the right hand side, you can see an even larger area that's there in kind of that reddish pink color, and then in the promised land in the green there. And so a pretty good chunk of land that was split on the eastern and western side of the Jordan for the tribe of Manasseh. Again, a lot of this had to do with that numbering before they went in, and that had to do with that massive increase that was there, as we saw in their census numbers there. And so again, the tribe with the largest amount of territory belonged to Manasseh. And so the eastern half of the tribe, so from here on out, I won't refer to them as the Transjordan or the Promised Land. I'll kind of do the eastern half or the western half. And so if you can kind of wrap your mind around, the eastern half is on the Transjordan, meaning outside of the Promised Land. They were given the area and kingdoms of Bashan and the Amorites, kind of that area where we talked about when we talked about the tribe of Gad, and the Gileadites, all of that northern area that was on the map, the northern part of Transjordan area, and it bordered the Sea of Galilee on their western border. So the western half of the tribe is the one that the territory was given to as they came into the promised land. And you can find that there in Joshua. Their northern border was with Asher, Zebulun, Issachar. Southern border was Ephraim, and then Benjamin and the original land of Dan as well. So their eastern borders was with Gad and the east half of Manasseh, or the Transjordan side, and their western border was on the Mediterranean Sea. So they spanned east to west almost the entire part for large areas of it from the sea to the Jordan River for the Western tribe. So this was split into 10 portions. I'd like to read this because for historical context of it, that you kind of understand why this was split. And then it gives you an indication of even way back in history, before the United States had women's rights movements, any of that stuff, that God had a plan to provide for daughters. Because as we know in history, not just the Israelite history, but in many societies, that females did not inherit. The inheritance was to go to the male offspring only. And so let's read a little bit about this and we'll get the full context of it. And so I'd like to go to Numbers 27 first, and we're going to read a chunk of this. And so we'll read part of it, we read the outcome, and then we will read how it was delivered in the end for this situation. So in Numbers 27, starting in verse 1, and then came the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these are the names of his daughters: Mahala, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest and before the princes and all the congregation by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord, meaning he wasn't one that suffered that plague or came against God in that, in the company of Korah, if we remember that, but died in his own sin, his unbelief, and had no sons. He only had daughters. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family, because he hath no son? Give unto us therefore a possession among the brethren of our father. And Moses brought their case before the Lord. And the Lord spake to Moses, saying, The daughters of Zelophehad speak right. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their father's brethren, and thou shalt cause the inheritance of their father to pass unto them. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then he shall give his inheritance unto his brethren. And if he have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren. So here God is clearly laying it out to Moses, if then, how this is supposed to be passed down from an offspring. If there is no offspring, who it's supposed to go to. And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment, as the Lord commanded Moses. So God gives the guidelines here of, yes, they are speaking correctly, their father's inheritance, and his name shouldn't be essentially wiped based on that inheritance because he didn't bear any sons. So God lays out the guidelines here. And so now we're going to flip to Numbers chapter 36. And we there as well will read verses 1 through 11. And so there's a little more detail in this of what God hands down for the guidelines of this, not just who land is supposed to go to, but what these daughters are supposed to do if they are the recipient of an inheritance of their father. And so laws of female inheritance, starting in Numbers 36, verse 1. And the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spake before Moses and before the princes and the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said, The Lord command my Lord to give the land for an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, unto his daughters. And if they be married to any of the sons of other tribes of the children of Israel, then shall their inheritance be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and shall be put to the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received. So shall it be taken from the lot of our inheritance. So what they're saying here is the other families, the chiefs, the princes are coming and saying, if you give these daughters the land and they marry someone outside of the tribe, that someone from the daughter from the tribe of Manasseh marries someone from the tribe of Asher, that land within Manasseh now belongs to her husband who is of the tribe of Asher. So this is conflict. And then the Jubilee of the children of Israel, starting back in verse 4, shall be, then shall their inheritance be put unto the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received. So shall their inheritance be taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers. And Moses commanded the children of Israel according to the word of the Lord, saying, the tribe of the sons of Joseph has said well. Thus is the thing which the Lord doth command concerning the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, let them marry to whom they think best, only to the family of the tribe of their father shall they marry. They can marry freely, but it must be within the tribe of Manasseh. In verse 7, so shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel remove from tribe to tribe, remove from tribe to tribe, for every one of the children of Israel shall keep himself to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. And every daughter that possesseth an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall be wife unto one of the family of the tribe of her father, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his fathers. Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance. Even as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the daughters of Zelophehad. For Mahala, Tirzah, Hoglath, Milcah, Noah, and the daughters of Zelophehad were married unto their father's brothers' sons. And they were married unto the families of the sons of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and the inheritance remained in the tribe of the family of the father. And so here we have guidelines of how it's supposed to be inherited. And then if it is inherited to a female, additional guidelines so that it stays within the tribe of Manasseh. There's no mixing of, well, this little portion belongs to now this other tribe outside of the main tribal area. And so now we'll turn to Joshua and see how this actually came to full fruition with the handing out of this. And so this is in Joshua chapter 17, starting in verse 5. We'll start in verse 3, and then we'll read down through verse 6. But Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons, but daughters. And these are the names of his daughters. Malhal, I'm not going to get this right tonight. Mahlah and Noah and Hoglath and Milcah and Tirzah. And they came near before Eleazar the priest and before Joshua the son of Nun and before the princes, saying, the Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brethren. Therefore, according to the commandment of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among the brethren of their father. And there fell 10 portions of Manasseh beside the land of Gilead, so meaning the eastern tribe, and Bashan, which were on the other side of the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh had an inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. So we have on the eastern half that went to the sons that decided to stay over there. And then the western half was divided into the 10 portions, because we have the son of Abiezer, Helek, Asriel, Shechem, and Shemitah. So those are the five, there, that lineage from those sons, from Manasseh. They received a portion of land, each one of those. And then if we remember, we had Heifer. Heifer had the son Zelophehad. We don't know if Heifer had any daughters, but Zelophehad is the son that's listed, and he had no sons but these five daughters. And so the five sons and then the five daughters within that tribe of Manasseh, each one of those families received a portion of land. And so again, women's rights here well before it was ever, but the Lord had a plan in all of that. Um, and now you know the rest of the story. There we go. And so we've read all of this. The daughters went before Moses and Eleazar to ask for the portion of their inheritance since their father had died. Moses takes it before the Lord. Each daughter gets the portion, and we saw every one of those, but they have to marry within the tribe so that it stays within the tribe. So, other things that happened within the tribe, the eastern half promised to help the others to win the land when they did go into the promised land, and they fulfilled that promise. The eastern half, they were of the three that built that altar by the Jordan. We read about this way back at the beginning of our study with Reuben, and they built that altar, and the western tribes thought, oh my goodness, they're going against the Lord and they're building an altar to worship another God. They were completely misunderstood, and it was their desire to build that altar so that future generations knew and would question, so that they could be told if they hadn't been told, in remembrance of what the Lord had done in bringing them out of Egypt through the wilderness and then into the promised land and what was given to them. The eastern half fought with Reuben and Gad to take over the Hagrites, so the other two tribes on that eastern side of the Jordan, for they cried to God in battle, and he was entreated of them because they put their trust in him. So here's faith. They called out to God, and God gave them the battle. They were listed as valiant men, able to bear buckler and sword and shoot with a bow, and skillful in war. In Chronicles, 44,760 men are listed there in Chronicles as men that could come with this description. The eastern half transgressed against God and was titled as going a whoring, meaning that they turned from them. Many of the tribes did this, and they were carried away by Assyria, probably likely one of the first ones to do so, given their northern area and then being on that eastern side of the Jordan. They didn't have as much protection as being on the western side of the Jordan. The eastern tribe as well is listed with Reuben and Gad. That all of those three tribes are lumped together that fought with David as in Hebron, for 120,000 men that fought with him, with all manner of instruments in war. The western half, now we move to the other side of the Jordan into the promised land. They did not expel the Canaanites, and the Canaanites ended up paying tribute to them, as did many of the other tribes. Did not get rid of and remove the inhabitants that were in the land when they came in, and ended up paying tribute to them. And it ended up being part of their demise, spiritually and in other forms as well, throughout their history. So the western half also complains with the tribe of Ephraim, that to Joshua, that their land, that they thought that they should have more, even though that those two tribes got the double portion. They got more than anyone else, especially Manasseh. But then to include Ephraim to come into this, and so I'd like to turn to Joshua chapter 17, and we were just there when we were talking about the daughters of Zelophehad there. But it starts in verse 14, and this is pretty short. And the children of Joseph spake unto Joshua, saying, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing I am a great people, for as much as the Lord hath blessed me hitherto. Woo, a little bit of puffed up there. And Joshua answered them, if thou be a great people, then get thee up to the wood country and cut down for thyself there in the land of the Perizzites and of the giants. If Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee, he's telling them, get up, go do what you need to do. If the Mount Ephraim, now that was the range, the mountain range that was there. If it's too small for you, get up, clear the land, do what you need to do. And the children of Joseph said, the hill is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both they who are of Bethshean and her towns, and they who are of the valley of Jezreel. We've heard this place before. And Joshua spake unto the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, thou art a great people and hast great power. Thou shalt not have one lot only, but the mountain shall be thine, for it is a wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine, for thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. So he's telling them, this is going to be enough for you. You've got to do the work. God has provided. You've got to do your part in this. And they didn't. They didn't. In that. So there's the synopsis of that account there in Joshua 17 there. And then the western half had 18,000 men who fought with David in Hebron. So we had 120, and that encompassed all three tribes from the eastern side of the Jordan, plus the 18,000 from the western tribe of Manasseh. They stood on Mount Gerizim to bless, Mount Gerizim to pronounce remember the blessings and the cursings that would befall them if they did or if they did not follow God's word. Some fell to David at Ziklag. They were part of the tribes that revolted against Rehoboam, the king of Judah, and split as the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. And Manasseh was one of the prominent tribes in those 10 tribes and the kingdom of Israel in history. Some returned to rightful worship of God under King Asa of Judah and destroyed idols. They offered spoils of 700 oxen and 7,000 sheep in the third month of the year of Asa's reigns, and you can find that account in 2 Chronicles. And they also took part in the destruction of the high places and idols with Hezekiah, king of Judah, in Judah and the tribal areas of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh. So we see the tribe of Joseph, those sons that came back to a rightfulness there in 2 Chronicles. So prominent members here, we already discussed at length the daughters of Zelophehad there. So we also have Gideon. His name was also Jerubbaal. So sometimes when we're reading scripture, we can overlook that the name has been changed sometimes, or that they have an additional name that they're called, and then you're reading and you don't even realize, well, I thought I was reading about somebody else, but it is this same individual. He was the 5th judge of the nation of Israel for 40 years. He had 70 sons, 70. And it is listed that he had many wives, and one of those Alan says, "Oh, I sure hope so. That would be hard on just a few wives to have 70 children." But he also had concubines, and one of them is listed as a concubine that was in Shechem. And we are going to learn of that individual as well. The angel of the Lord Gideon, his story is quite amazing. The things that God does in that, and you can find that account in Judges chapter 6, 7, and 8. If you haven't read about Gideon, I would suggest maybe that is something you could do as your Bible study this evening. The angel of the Lord appears to him, that he would defeat the Midianites who were oppressing his people. He offered sacrifice, and it was burned, and that is a to counter what all of the prophets of Baal that are there in that account. He destroyed his father's altar to Baal with the help of the 10 servants and erected an altar to the Lord. So, knowing what he should do, defying his family for the honor of God, and that he put out fleece of wool to receive a sign from God, to war against the Midianites. And he called tribes to come and fight. And there were so many that came, he essentially had to parse them down. Although that many showed up, he had to parse them down because it was too many to go to war, and was successful with only 300 men. Again, read that account. It wouldn't be a whole lot to ask of you this evening. So Abimelech, he was the sixth judge of Israel and judged for 3 years. This is the son of Gideon. He is one of the sons of Gideon, and we find his account in Judges chapter 9. And I'd like to read this to you because this then leads into one of the next individuals as well. And so, sorry, I've got my notes here. I need to flip the page here. And so we're going to read chapter 9 of Judges. Again, if you'd like to follow along in your Bible, you can flip there. So starting in verse 1, and Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, Gideon, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether is better for you, either that all the sons of Jerubbaal, Gideon, which are 70 persons, that's the 70 there, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. So he's specifically going to the family at Shechem and saying, it's better that I rule over you versus my other 69 siblings. Just me. Remember, I'm here. I'm your guy. I'm your guy. We're related here, not these other ones. And starting in verse 3, and his mother's brethren spake of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem all these words, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal-berith, wherewith Abimelech hired vain and light persons which followed him. And he went into his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, being 70 persons. Upon the stone notwithstanding, yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. So this brother went to his father's home and killed every one of his siblings, and only one, the youngest brother, Jotham, survives. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Milo, and went and made Abimelech king by the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. And when they told it to Jotham, he went and stood at the top of the Mount Gerizim, the blessings. This isn't going to be a blessing. And lifted up his voice and cried and said unto them, Hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. The trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them, and they said unto the olive tree, Reign thou over us. But the olive tree said unto them, Should I leave my fatness, wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over these trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, Come thou and reign over us. But the fig tree said unto them, Should I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said the trees unto the vine, Come thou and reign over us. And the vine said unto them, Should I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said all the trees unto the bramble, Come thou and reign over us. And the bramble said unto the trees, If in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and put your trust in my shadow, and if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Now therefore, if ye have done truly and sincerely sincerely, and that ye have made Abimelech king, and if you had dwelt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done unto him according to the deserving of his hands. For my father fought for you and adventured his life far and delivered you out of the hand of Midian. And you are risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons 70 persons upon one stone, and have made Abimelech the son of his maidservant king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If ye then have dealt truly and sincerely with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come down from Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Milo, and let fire come out from the men of Shechem and from the house of Milo, and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer, and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech his brother. And when Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. And the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood he laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. And the men of Shechem set leers to wait for him in the top of the mountains, and they robbed all that came along the way by them, and it was told Abimelech. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, came to his brother and went over Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. And they went out into the fields and gathered their vineyard, and trode the grapes, and made merry, and went into the house of their God, and did eat and drink, and cursed Abimelech. And so this story goes on. Abimelech rises up, and all the people that were with him by night, and they laid wait against Shechem in the four companies. So he gets word of this. They come against them. I'm down into verse 34 here. And then within this, Abimelech chases him. He ends up killing the men of Shechem, down into verse 46. And when all the men of the Tower of Shechem heard that they had entered into the hold of the house of the god Berith, and it was told Abimelech that all the men of the Tower of Shechem were gathered together. And Abimelech gat him up to Mount Zalem, and he and all the people that were with him. And then Abimelech took an axe in his hand, and cut a bough from the tree, and took it and laid it on his shoulder, and said unto the people that were with him, What ye have seen me do, make haste and do as I have done. So he's telling them, do what I did, chop down a branch of the tree. And all the people likewise cut down every man his bough, and followed Abimelech, and put them to the hold, and set the hold on fire upon them, so that all the men of the Tower of Shechem died also, about 1,000 men and women. So this is how they destroy Shechem. So Abimelech is the cause of not just killing all the siblings, but he now is destroying all the men of Shechem, because they're coming against him because of that. The prophecy, they put an evil spirit, God put in an evil spirit within them against Abimelech, in that. And so now in verse 50, and when then Abimelech to Thebez, and encamped against Thebez, and took it. And there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and women, and all they of the city, and shut it unto them, and gat them up to the top of the tower. And Abimelech came unto the tower, and fought against it, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn with fire. And a certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head, and break his skull. So she's on top, drops this millstone down, and cracks his skull. Then he called hastily unto the young man, his armor bearer, and said unto him, Draw thy sword, and slay me, that men say not of me, a woman slew him. Pride's getting the best of him again. And this young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren, And all the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. So there is the story of Abimelech with that. And so, not a good story, but one that God says, vengeance is mine, and he fulfills with that. So there is also another individual, another judge. This scripture does not 100% tell us that Jair, the eighth judge of Israel, who served as that judge for 22 years, that he did come from the tribe of Manasseh. He's just listed as a Gileadite. And if we go back and we look, that is that northern area on the eastern side of the Jordan. So he potentially could have been from the tribe of Manasseh, but also could have been of the tribe of Gad as well, because there were multiple cities there. And that if you remember when we studied the tribe of Gad, that there was some area that was, maybe a little more controversy of really where the boundary was for that. But they're possibly Jair, and really all that we know of him is that he judged for 22 years. And then we have Jephthah. He was the ninth judge of Israel, and he judged for 6 years. His story is one that is pretty lengthy as well, but I'd like to read part of it so you get a good gist of this gentleman. Because if you read at the bottom of this slide, he's an individual that is listed in the Hall of the Faithful in Hebrews. And so I think that that's important that we read about the faith of this individual. And so I'm going to start in Judges chapter 11, and I'll probably read a good chunk of this, and then we'll skip to the end of it. And so if you haven't read these, please note these, and I've posted the slides that you can go back and read the entire story so that you get a better understanding for yourself in this. And so starting in Judges chapter 11, verse 1, now Jephthah, a Gileadite, was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of a harlot. And Gilead begat Jephthah, and bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up, and they thrust out Jephthah, and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. So he's kicked out because his mother is a harlot. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren and dwelt in the land of Tob. Now, the land of Tob is on the eastern side of the Jordan, kind of southeast from the Sea of Galilee. But that land of Tob actually means good land. And you'll find the land of Tob in Samuel as well, in the book of Samuel. I forget if it's first or second Samuel, but it's there. And there were gathered vain men to Jephthah, and he went out with them. And it came to pass in the process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, Come and be our captain, and we may fight with the children of Ammon. And Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, Did you not hate me and expel me out of my father's house? And why are you come unto me now when you're in distress? So you didn't want me, but now you want me to come and fight for you. And the elders of Gilead said unto Jephthah, Therefore we turn again to thee now, that thou mayest go with us and fight against the children of Ammon, and beat our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. And Jephthah said unto the elders of Gilead, If you bring me home again to fight against the children of Ammon, and the Lord deliver them before me, shall I be your head? He's questioning them. And the elders of Gilead said unto Jephthah, The Lord be witness between us, if we do not so according to thy words. Then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and captain over them. And Jephthah uttered all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, What hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? And the king of the children of Ammon answered and said unto messengers of Jephthah, Because Israel took away my land, when they came out of Egypt from Ammon, even unto Jabbok, and unto Jordan. Now, therefore, restore these lands again peaceably. So he's saying, you came in, you took the land. We want you to give it back to us. That's why we're here. And Jephthah sent messengers again unto the king of the children of Ammon, and said unto them, Thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. But when Israel came up from Egypt and walked through the wilderness unto the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, then Israel sent messengers unto the king of Edom, saying, Let me, I pray thee, pass through thy land. But the king of Edom would not hearken thereto. This is when we were talking about, my apologies if it was Zebulun or if it was Issachar, when we were talking about the king's highway and how that was first talked about when Moses and them were in the wilderness and they were coming up and they wouldn't let them pass. They were coming up that king's highway. This is the same account in this, and they wouldn't let them pass. And in a like manner, I'm back into halfway through verse 17. And in like manner, they sent unto the king of Moab, that he would not consent to Israel abode in Kadesh. Then they went along through the wilderness and compassed the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and came to the east side of the land of Moab, and pitched on the other side of Arnon, but came not within the border of Moab, for Arnon was the border of Moab. And Israel sent messengers, so they're back and forth in this. And so they're gonna go to war in this. This is gonna come to blows. They're gonna go to battle in this. And so dropping down now into chapter 11, verse 29, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed over into the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So he's saying, speaking directly to God, saying, if you give me victory over the children of Ammon, when I get home and I come in peace, the first thing that comes out of my house, I will sacrifice and offer up to you. And so Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them unto his hands, and he smote them from Or even till come thou to Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plain of the vineyards, in very great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. So now down into chapter 11, verse 34. And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances, and she was his only child. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass, when he saw her, that he rent his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that trouble me, for I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. He can't go back on his word. He made a vow. And she said unto him, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which hath proceeded out of thy mouth, forasmuch as the Lord hath taken vengeance for thee of thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon. And she said unto her father, Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. And he said, Go. And he sent her away for 2 months, and she went with her companions and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed. And she knew no man. And it was a custom, as it was a custom in Israel, that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in a year. And so he's listed in the hall of the faithful in Hebrews chapter 11, and it starts in verse, really, let's just go to 31. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believe not when she had received the spies with peace. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and of Jephthah, and of David also and Samuel and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions. Oh, that's kind of a rough note to end on. I apologize for that, but just so that you get some history on some of that stuff, sometimes some of these accounts get overlooked a little bit, and so I thought it important that we read some of that stuff. I apologize for so much of the reading of that, but I think it's important that you get the bigger story of that when we're talking about these individuals. And so I'm going to stop with the tribe of Manasseh here. Next week, we will pick up with the tribe of Ephraim. And you're probably thinking, but we didn't do the blessing and the prophecy of Jacob and Moses. We didn't, because the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, theirs is, identical. Pardon me. The prophecy and the blessing goes to the tribe of Joseph. And so I didn't want to teach it here and then have to teach it again in Ephraim. And so next week we'll learn about the tribe of Ephraim, and then we will do the prophecy and blessing of both Jacob and Moses as one, encompassing both of the tribes of this. And so I am going to escape out of this and stop sharing and then bring everybody back up.